So the Russia-Ukraine updates are interesting, chat. I know, because we just wrapped up our like 9-week-long deep dive into the Russia and Ukraine war. So if you're here, chat, you probably have a pretty good understanding of the actual nature of the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, right? So let's get into what's going on with this latest development here. Russia blames Ukraine for deadly restaurant bombing in Moscow. Foreign Ministry accuses Kiev of carrying out attack, reports say may have been aimed at Air Force chief. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is we think about this as a Russian invasion of Ukraine, which is correct. Russia did invade Ukraine. But what people don't realize is that Ukraine also has a counter invasion of Russia. So when we talk about, for example, North Korean troops being sent to fight Ukrainians, they're not in Ukraine. They're in the Kursk region of Russia because Ukraine has made an incursion now, an invasion into Russian territory as well. And of course, none of this even speaks to the fact that this was not an unprovoked war. This came from intense conflict that had been going on there since 2014 and arguably since 1991. Yes. So Russia has blamed Ukraine for a bombing at a restaurant in central Moscow that killed 5 people, amid growing speculation that a senior Russian military commander was the intended target. The explosion occurred on Saturday evening near the entrance to an upmarket Italian restaurant in one of the city's 7 Stalin-era skyscrapers on Kondrinskaya Square. Russian prosecutors said an unidentified woman carrying an improvised explosive device had attempted to enter the restaurant but was stopped by a security guard. This is an interesting... just a point of interest for me. What did she look like trying to enter the restaurant where a security guard was like, I don't trust you? Like, she just, like, had, like, spy written on her forehead or something? What is this? What is this? Welcome. Brooklyn's a hater. Welcome to the chat. Okay. I'm imagining so many things. I'm imagining like the worst spy in the world here. That a security guard at a restaurant clocks her and is like, lady, I know what you are. Right? So the device detonated moments later, killing 5 people and injuring 19 others. In a statement on Sunday, Russia's foreign ministry accused Kiev of carrying out the attack, saying the bloody tentacles of Zelensky's terrorist gang have reached the Balzy Rossi Italian restaurant in Moscow. Russian authorities have not identified the intended target or named the victims. However, pro-Kremlin military bloggers and several independent Russian media outlets reported that the attack may have been aimed at Colonel General Alexander Chaiko, the commander of Russia's aerospace forces, who was reportedly attending a private banquet at the restaurant to celebrate his 55th birthday. Photographs and videos that appeared online shortly after the bombing, purportedly from the private event, showed a stage with the words Alexander 55 displayed in the background. And that was him. Okay, 55th birthday. Chaiko was one of Russia's top military commanders, having led the failed assault on Kiev in early 2022, before later being promoted to command the Russian Air Force. The Telegram channel Vychek Ogpu, which is known for publishing leaks from within Russia's security services, reported that Chaiko escaped unharmed. According to the channel, his daughter Maria was seriously injured in the blast, while her husband, Daniel Peredri, was killed. They were outside the restaurant's terrace, when the explosion occurred. The Russian newspaper Kommersant reported that investigators believe the woman carrying the explosive device may not have known she was transporting a bomb, suggesting it was detonated remotely by another person, killing her as well. Among the reported victims was a member of Russia's elite Federal Protective Services, FSO. Kiev has not yet commented on the event. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine's intelligence agencies have targeted dozens of senior Russian military officers and Russia-installed officials, accusing them of involvement in war crimes. Ukrainian intelligence services have previously employed a range of tactics, relying on both willing saboteurs and unwitting civilians to carry out bombings. This is a very interesting article. They've succeeded in killing at least 4 Russian generals and several other senior military figures, as well as pro-war activists deep inside Russian territory, although some operations have missed their intended targets. In 2022, a car bomb killed Daria Dugina, the daughter of the ultra-nationalist Russian ideologue Alexander Dugin, in an attack widely believed to have been intended for her father. Okay, so this is a fascinating article. I think that the tide is starting to turn on reporting of Ukraine. We used to see, obviously, around 2013, 2014, on to around 2021, we would see mainstream news sources reporting more, I'm going to say, fairly on what was going on in Ukraine. They might not have been as likely to call it an all-out coup, but they would be more likely to talk about the massive neo-Nazi issue going on there, to talk about the influence of corrupt businessmen in the coup, even if they didn't call it a coup, right? So then for a while, from 2022 on, it seemed like it was off limits to imply that Ukraine was ever doing anything other than being a perfectly innocent angel baby at the whims and mercies of the big bad evil Russia. But now it seems like this is kind of starting to shift in messaging. And obviously it becomes harder for them to advance this narrative when Ukraine is doing things like attacking Iranian ships in oceans that aren't even close to Ukraine's borders. Or seas rather, not an ocean, sorry. So this is really, an interesting turn. So one of the things that I first notice about this is the tone. The tone does seem more fair. It does not seem to paint Ukraine as perfect innocent angel baby, right? It seems to position this more as a balanced war, a balanced conflict. This is one of the types of things that happens when two countries go to war with each other. Sometimes civilians are killed. Sometimes people are made into unwitting agents or of espionage. And this is a reality of conflict and of war. But it does feel like this would not be the type of activity that would have been reported if Ukraine had done it in the past, or maybe not reported quite the same way. So I think this is really, really interesting. I am willing to bet that as Ukraine increasingly aligns itself with Israel and with the United States, it is going to be something that the EU and Europe and England, Great Britain, UK, attempts to distance themselves from Ukraine maybe a little bit more, because they right now are a little bit skeptical of the United States and Israel. Obviously, they can only protest so much, right? But I wonder if we're going to see more stuff like that come about, right? This is my general line of thinking here. So it'll be interesting to see what develops from this. I think that the main thing to note is that The Guardian's an English newspaper, so that's why they're reporting on this. This is Europe, and they're going to have less of an American perspective, even on news articles that have to do more with America or the United States. So this, I think, is fascinating, though, for us to think about, especially in the context of thinking about the Jeffrey Sachs lecture, where he was recommending that Europe come together and separate itself from American foreign policy, being like, the United States is basically a sinking ship, and they want to tie an anchor to Europe. Like, don't do it. Develop your own foreign policy independent of the United States and stop being terrified of Russia. And that was really Jeffrey Sachs' recommendation at EU Parliament. And now, obviously, this is England, UK, so it's not a part of the EU, but I wonder if there's some sort of similar sentiment going on there, that people in Europe generally are more skeptical of the United States and our proxy states' military ambitions around the globe, which includes Ukraine. So very, very fascinating. Does anybody else have any good observations or anything that this made them think about in the context of the rhetoric going on about Russia and Ukraine right now, the general shifting tide? It seems like more people are starting to call it for what it is. Any other thoughts from anybody in the chat that's worth discussing? If this was Ukraine, they are literally just doing terrorism, says by any means necessary. Exactly. Yes, that's true. And while it is true that Russia has been accused of targeting civilian areas, nothing this blatant, nothing that I've heard of anyway, that's this extreme. It's things that are in war zones, war areas. It's not to target the assassination of one leader at a restaurant, certainly, with a woman who apparently did not even know that she was strapped with a bomb, right? So this is really interesting. I think that is correct. If this is Ukraine, they are literally just doing terrorism. Yep. Red Scare is failing, says Ghost in this Hell. Yeah. This is not a sign that Ukraine is winning. That is true. And I don't think that they are winning, right? I think it's a foolish struggle for them to have even been in, right? They never should have pursued NATO expansion in the first place. Any other thoughts before... This was a quick read, actually, before we move on. Miss MM2, I have a lot of friends in both the UK and many parts of Europe, and their language has changed a lot about their feelings on the Ukrainian government, including Ukrainians themselves who are mad at their government, right? And that's something we have to remember, too. There are many people in Ukraine who are not happy with their government. They're unhappy they were couped. They don't like being under a fascist, basically, new government system. There are socialists in Ukraine who have been locked up in prison for having left-wing politics. Obviously, famously, the people of Crimea and the Donbass have tried to secede to form their own government outside of what's going on. It's, it's a lot. It's a lot. Has Israeli terror fingerprints all over it, says Elmira Marks. Not meaning they did it, but meaning they encouraged and helped them. It does kind of sound like the same techniques that would be used by Israel. Yep, that's true. The way Reuters has the headline as "Bomb Carried by Woman Kills 3" is kind of wild. That actually is true. I'm going to look that up. Because that is an interesting position. They don't say anything about Ukraine. There's this one too. The Star is what I have. Injures 21 near Moscow restaurant. This is a picture from the scene. Just before 8 p.m., Russia's National Anti-Terrorism Committee said an unidentified woman carrying an improvised explosive device tried to get into the restaurant, etc. Okay, speculation of link to Ukraine war. So this seems interesting too, because it seems like the Guardian piece is more just like, this is probably Ukraine, and this one's like a footnote. Oh, it might have something to do with Ukraine. So that's fascinating. Is the Star, where's the Star based? Are they based in the USA? They changed the headline now, though. Oh. Interesting. Where's the Star from? Malaysia. Okay, Malaysia. All right. So this is more of it seems like a more American perspective on it. 5. High five back. Toronto Star. Okay. Okay, very, very interesting. So, all right, something for us just to note, chat, now that we're all super educated on what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. The transition into just outright terrorism would certainly be a choice, and it would seem to align that they are taking on a military strategy more akin to Israel's military strategy, which is the enemy is the enemy. Like, there is no sympathy. They don't even pretend to have rules of engagement. You do what needs to get done, and civilians are potential targets. Why? Because they're gonna align with the government anyway. It doesn't really matter. There's no discrimination or difference between a civilian or a military personnel for Israel, and I think we might see that happening with Ukraine as well. Hold on just a second. And again, I'm going to bring this up. We looked at this before, but just as reference, Ukrainian news anchor quotes Adolf Eichmann, calls for genocide against Russians. This is not out of nowhere, this idea that just all the Russian people must be killed, right? Obviously, we know that was there was a lot of anti-Russian rhetoric after the coup that went on in Ukraine. That helped lead to these pogroms basically being done against areas that were ethnically Russian people there. But then there was this as well, where Russian news anchors were on television saying, no, we're going to kill them all. Like, we got to kill every single Russian person. So if they've made a shift into just doing terrorism and they don't care how many civilians they kill, I think it also does signify a deep dehumanization of the Russian people that has now been, over a decade in the making, right? Starting in 2014. For Ukrainians, they've now had 12 years of a deep dehumanization of Russian people, which I think is fascinating. Yeah, Elmira says, think about it. The rogue Iranian attacking the Iranian boat, and now this random terrorist attack. These are both things Israel would do. That's true. That's a very, very interesting observation. Eden Versailles, your partner told you yesterday he's super concerned. I've been propagandized by me about Ukraine. Oh, God. Well, tell him to get paying attention, right? I am not World Socialist website. But a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know. And this is what we were talking about today on Burger Reg Stream, which is why is it easier to get through to Republicans than to Democrats? And it's because Republicans and Democrats both have Republicans have a false consciousness, which I think is really, really interesting. They think they have more class consciousness than Democrats, but it's just false. And that's why they think like Elon Musk and Donald Trump are somehow on their side or whatever. But Democrats don't really have any consciousness at all. And they're very, very, very propagandized. So it's harder to get through to them, like we were saying on Burger Rec Stream, because you have to convince them everything they think they know about the world that they're confident in is wrong. They are confident that Russia and Donald Trump are best friends, and Donald Trump evil, so Russia evil. They believe that. They believe that the United States government supports Russia, that Donald Trump supports Russia, which is absolutely bizarre. They also believe Ukraine, good, sweet, pure, innocent angel baby. So trying to get them to understand the reality of this dynamic and how much more complicated it is than that is challenging to their worldview. So it's very, very interesting dynamic. They're very, very smug about it. They feel morally superior while not really having a right to, and they're really smug about it. Yeah. They're not like, maybe I don't actually know that much about this, right? I was talking to somebody in Burger Reich, and I was talking to them about North Korea, and I was like, what if you're wrong about North Korea? Right? I know you've never looked into this, because if you've looked into this, you would know everything I know, but you haven't. So I know you haven't looked into it. So what if you're wrong? And they're like, what if you're wrong? And I'm like, well, I'm not, because I've looked into it. You haven't. Like, but that's how confident they are. They haven't looked into anything, but they're like, but I could be just as wrong as you. And it's like, well, no, you couldn't, because you haven't looked into this at all. Like, there's a knowledge gap going on here, and they're just so, it doesn't even occur to them. Democrats do love a Nazi, and they get really mad when you point it out. It's very, very true. You have leftist friends that believe Ukraine is an angel. Yep. But I think the more that Ukraine is showing itself to the world, it's going to be harder and harder for people to deny. I know, I'm going to get to go do it. I'm so excited to make content for you guys in China. I'm still trying to figure out if it makes more sense to try to live stream every day for a little bit from there, or just record things and bring them. Maybe I'll do both, something like that. Yeah, I've looked into it. Quick AI summary search, exactly. Welcome for some chat. Hi. You met a punk with a Ukraine flag on his crust pants. Jesus. Yeah, I'm going in 2 weeks. So it'll be 2 weeks. So I'll try to do some live streams from there. I'm going to try to get everything set up, and we'll try to do the VPN, the eSIM, everything. Yeah, I'm going to try to do it. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so that said, interesting things for us to observe about Ukraine, Russia. Some developments. Tide turning. Horde of Red Note Rex? Ooh, where can, maybe in the Discord. I don't think I'm a member of the Discord anymore. This is what I'm convinced of. So, I don't think I'm in the Discord. So that might be something. I leave for China the 16th, but I get there on the 18th. Because of, time travel and everything. Can we recap the reasons for the Ukraine-Russia war? Yeah, I'll do them really fast, Ellie. So you can go watch all the in-depth stuff about it, but basically, in 2013, 2014, the United States backed a coup in Ukraine, and the coup was a group of rich businessmen with ties to Israel, and also a group of literal neo-Nazis who the rich businessmen paid money to basically fight the coup for them, and they won. And they became the new government of Ukraine in 2014. And this new government was backed and trained by the United States as well. So after that, basically, the new government kind of let the neo-Nazis do whatever they want. And they became a part of the official army of the new Ukrainian government. And the businessmen were like, we don't really care, whatever. Like, we need you. You helped us win the war, blah. So the neo-Nazis became, the military of Ukraine. And then they started trying to ethnically cleanse Ukraine of Russians. Because ethnic Russians were the largest minority in Ukraine. So they started basically harassing and targeting ethnic Russians. And the Ukrainian government was just like, we're not going to do anything. We need them. So then key areas of Ukraine that demographically were extremely ethnically Russian tried to secede very quickly and join Russia or become their own country, join Russia for protection or join their own country, because the violence escalated to the point where the new Ukrainian military of neo-Nazis was literally murdering them. They did a massacre and they killed 40 people for being a leftist. They associate also, it's worth knowing, they think of Russia as being communist still because they're Nazis. So they think anybody with left-wing politics is Russian. So when they say Russian, it's you're Russian, you're a communist, you're an anarchist, you're a socialist, you're a leftist. That's all Russian to them. So they killed over 40 leftists. They massacred them. And so these regions started trying to leave Ukraine so that they would have protection against the people doing this, basically. And that involved Russia in the conflict. So Russia backed their independence movement. Russia allowed Crimea in, and then they backed an independence movement in another region, the Donbass region, which is two smaller regions comprising it. And this led to escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine. And Ukraine at the same time was pursuing NATO membership, which would put a missile pointed 500 kilometers from Moscow, pointed at them. And they refused to negotiate with Russia about it. And Russia was basically like, called them on their shit and was like, so you're basically dehumanizing ethnic Russians in your borders. You're running pogroms against Russian people there. And you're going to put a missile pointed at our capital. Like, call it what it is. Like, your new government's trying to go to war with Russia. So, like, fuck it, we're going to war. So then they officially declared it a war in 2022 after 8 years of this conflict. And that's what officially started the war. So that's what's going on there. And Ukraine made it illegal to be a leftist. They made it illegal to be a socialist. They locked up socialists just for being socialists. They started building statues honoring Nazis and naming street signs after Nazis. I mean, it got really, really bad. Oh, I'm in a special safe house in the Discord to protect me from annoying. Oh, thank you. Okay, I'll figure it out. Thank you, Lord Axiom, for letting me know. I've been gulagged for not. We gotta start sending everyone to China. We're gonna pick a new streamer from TankTube every month and do a targeted subscription campaign to get them to China too. Yeah, you remember the one time American TikTok moved to Red Note, temporarily broke down like decades of propaganda? Yeah, I feel like it would be the same thing if people could actually understand what's going on in Ukraine and Russia right now too. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so let's get into the second text today. Right? Yeah, China trips for all of TankTube. So what was the start of the invasion? So the start of the invasion was 2022. That's when Russia finally was like, you're clearly going to go to war with us. Let's just do it. We're doing it. Fuck this. So that was the start of the invasion in 2022. That was after 8 years of the increasing dehumanization of Russian people in Ukraine and the pursuing of NATO membership and refusal to negotiate over NATO membership. So that is it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Virgo, we love you too. Honestly, I just want to say, like, not to be mushy or anything, but this would not be a community without Virgo. And I just want everybody who's here to, like, really understand everything that Virgo has put into making this community. First of all, TankTube, quite literally. Second of all, the Discord. Virgo has taken, like, me yapping into a screen for 2 hours and turned it into a community. And I just think that we all should really make sure that we know who's putting in that effort to build us up into a group, and just make sure you are following Virgo as well. You're subscribing to Virgo. Everybody on TankTube, really. Because the whole goal with TankTube, for those of you who don't know, is there's a few of us who have more of a large following. And what we wanted to do was use our following to amplify other people who have similar viewpoints as us, so we can build a community, basically, of people sharing and spreading these same ideas. But when you're new to doing any sort of content creation, it can be hard to get your foot in the door. So the idea was that we would redistribute the viewership, right, to people with similar views. So that's kind of our goal here. So please make sure you are following the people on TankTube who are just getting started, and we can really support them and uplift them. Because my whole thing, look, you guys know I'm a Marxist-Leninist, right? My whole thing is I don't care who of us is getting through, right? Maybe whatever Marxist-Leninist is getting through, like, great, let's go. So we want to do that. We want to really make sure that if it's not me, fine, try someone else. I don't care who it is, as long as we're getting through to you. So that's the goal. If you don't follow Comrade Virgo, how do we know you're gay? Great question, London's best gay. Okay, so that said, yeah, I love Yugo too. Yugo's great. So it's really good for us all to support each other. And it's also important. Sometimes some of us might, like we were talking about on Friday, some of us might have slight disagreements over things that are what we call comradely disagreements, where these disagreements work fine and function fine in the framework of people with a similar ideology and slightly different interpretations, And that stuff's important too. And you can get multiple perspectives with slight varying degrees on things, right, from all of us. And we might also fill in each other's knowledge gaps here and there too on things, which is cool as well. Yes. Yay, Virgo. Yay. It is a very nice Twitch community. So, just never be a Trotsky about your disagreements. No Trotsky! Disagreements good, Trotsky bad. No Trotsky style disagreements. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the second part of our news dump for today then, chat. We're going to talk about what's going on in Spain and North Africa. So this has been going on, it's been in the news for at least a week now, maybe 2 weeks. 2 week. I'm saying it like Trotsky. Everything's Trotsky speak now. 2 week. So this, I think, is going to be an interesting explainer on what's going on with Spain and North Africa. So what we've kind of heard going on in the news for the last week is, like, there's a migrant crisis. We've heard that waves of Moroccans are coming up against the Spanish borders. But the details that have not really made it is that it's actually a Spanish enclave that lies on the northern coast of Africa bordering Morocco. So we're going to learn about this. Oh, kind of speak is how Nazis on the internet signal each other they're Nazis with baby speak? Is that for real? Really, Malrish? Chucky? Oh no! Are they gonna think we're Nazis because Chucky? No! They can't take this from me. Automod from Ellie. Ellie, the reason you were auto-modded is because you have a word in there that's not a slur, but it's a word we try not to use. I'm trying not to use. I still use it sometimes too. And it's the word stupid, and we're trying not to use that. It's kind of language on our channel, just so you know. But that's the reason why you were auto-modded. But that is actually an okay question that you asked. Some of you guys won't see the question, so I'm just going to say, who's Trotsky? Why is Trotsky bad? So Trotsky was a Marxist who contributed a lot to Marxist theory. And his main point of disagreement with Stalin was on permanent revolution versus communism in one country. And everybody in this chat pretty much probably is of the belief that communism in one country makes more sense and is less harmful to people and the revolution. We think trying to export your revolution constantly is actually really bad for people in other countries who are on the receiving end of that export. And it also slows down their development of class consciousness because they view you as an enemy, and it's actually counterproductive. And the best thing you can do is keep your eyes on your own paper and thrive, and then people will want to copy you later. We think that's the best way to spread permanent revolution, right? So it's a disagreement in tactic and principle, I guess. But the reason why Trotsky became such a divisive figure in Marxism is not necessarily his beliefs, it's the way he moved. So Trotskyists, as a group, emerged, who were people who were disciples of Trotsky, basically, and they went to war with other communists. They really did not like the Marxist-Leninists who followed communism in one country. They became very, very disorienting records for huge amounts of movements all around the globe. During World War II, many of them sided with the fascists, literally with Mussolini or Japan or even Germany, to try to remove Marxist-Leninists from power. And it's just generally, they also tried to rewrite history to make it look like Trotsky was who led the Russian Revolution. I mean, just all sorts of very, very weird things. So that's really where the crux of the disagreement is. Sometimes you'll read old Trotsky theory and it'll be fine. It'll be good. We've read Trotsky theory on here before. It's more about Trotskyism as an ideology that we don't like. Yes, Bowers says domino theory is the only thing a communist will agree on the CIA on. The threat of a good example. Exactly. Uh-huh. Yes. So, some of them worship dolphins and want nukes for using. Oh. Okay, so, alright. Getting into Spain and North Africa. Sorry about that little diversion before we got into this. Spain's two tiny enclaves on the northern coast of Africa have long been a flashpoint in its relationship with Morocco, which the territories border. The only such European territories on African soil, they include the autonomous city enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla, as well as the Plazas de Soberania. I'm doing it Valley Girl, I'm not going to do it in Spanish. A group of rocky islands off the Moroccan coast, which include the Chafarinas Islands, Alhucemas Islands, and Pinon de Valles de la Gomera. While Spain says it owns these enclaves, Morocco does not recognize Spain's sovereignty over them and has been demanding their return since independence from France in 1956. The territorial dispute has resulted in long-standing political tensions between Spain and Morocco. Last week, after more than 50,000 migrants surged over the border into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta, those tensions between Madrid and Rabat intensified. While most have since returned to Morocco, several thousand remain in Ceuta this week. So why does Spain have all these territories at all, and what does their future hold? Here's what we need to know. Should we watch the 2-minute long video chat? 2 minutes, let's watch it. It's not long.
They're queuing for water, the army having finally delivered a supply. It's the first bit of assistance most had received since arriving in Ceuta. The chaotic manner of their arrival in Spain's autonomous outpost on the North African coast has inflamed EU tensions over immigration. And while the authorities have sent back most of the mainly Moroccans among some 60,000 who breached the border, this is the human crisis left behind. Citizens of Sudan, Algeria, Egypt, Mali, Senegal, Somalia.
We just need asylum. That's all we seek for. Asylum. That's all we seek for.
Asylum.
Yeah.
And then to travel on to Europe.
Possible.
If you have our rights, we will have documents, they will register us, and then they will do what they're supposed to do for us.
But so far, nothing.
No, yes, for now, nothing.
The Spanish government says the border is once more secure, but Ceuta has been overwhelmed. Its migrant reception centre was full even before this crisis. Now humanity spills out onto the embankment below and still further into the valley. People camped in an African ravine in the hope of a European life. And on the beach, the overflow continues, with no sign that immigration authorities in this Spanish city have any ability to cope.
I'm really struck on this beach by the almost total lack of support these people have received since arriving here. There is some water for the first time. Most haven't eaten at all, though, and there is no one here for them to talk to appeal to, who can reassure them or give them any idea at all what may happen next.
Some countries that like Sudani and Somali, they can't go back. Their countries are fighting and many problems are there. So going back is too hard for us. Instead of that, we have to just sit here and starve, waiting until we get help.
There's a sudden frisson of activity and a large group assembles on the sand. In their frustration, it turns out, this is an effort to self-organise, a head count of all the Sudanese present. Safety in numbers, perhaps. What else are they supposed to do? Jonah Holt, Al Jazeera, Ceuta, Spain.
Okay. So yeah, somebody said reverse colonizing Spain. I mean, yes, this is a colony. It is a colony of Spain on Moroccan territory. Some of it, Morocco was like, that is definitely ours. That is definitely not yours. And, it's not quite the story that we were led to believe, that migrants are spilling over into Europe and everybody should be terrified. Like, I feel like it was like a racist fear-mongering thing for a few minutes. But really, it's like, well, this is a humanitarian crisis developing in basically a colonial outpost of Spain. Okay, wait, so it predates colonial era. Lenin's Cat 98 says, Ceuta people don't claim to be Moroccan. Oh, that's really interesting. Let's look into that more. I'm going to look into that more. Thank you for that point of clarification. This was not my understanding of it, so I appreciate this clarification. How did it end up being Spain, though? Oh! Favorite lip slopper. Guardian's got to follow up. Let's look into that more. Okay, thank you for that correction. I appreciate that. So, the enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla, along with a few islets off the coast of Morocco, constitute the last vestiges of the Spanish colonial empire. Ceuta first came under Portuguese rule in 1415 before becoming a part of Spain in 1580, while Melilla was conquered by Spanish noblemen in 1497. Ceuta remained under Spanish control after Portugal regained independence in 1640 following a long war. Okay, so this is my understanding. This is where I was like, it's a colonial thing. But I'm going to be interested to do the follow-up on what you were talking about as well. And it's always been a complicated point for many empires, like Malta. Okay, I think I understand this. I think I have some reference points to understand this. So let's keep reading, and then we'll talk more about it once we've had more input on this, okay? So Spain reached its greatest extent in Latin America, and with the loss of Cuba, Costa Rica, and the Philippines in 1898, it shifted its influence to Africa, although most European colonial powers had already divided it amongst themselves, explained Yolanda Ayala Cabre, an anthropologist at the IMF CSIC in Barcelona. After the decolonization of Africa in the last century, Ceuta and Melilla remained the only European-held territories on the African mainland. Although geographically in Africa, the enclaves are considered Spanish territory and form part of the EU's external borders. For Spain, maintaining these enclaves on the northern coast of Africa is fundamental on a symbolic level because they reinforce Spanish grandeur, its imperialism past which the state continues to consider a bearer of civilization, in contrast to barbarism, which is like textbook colonial racist BS. A notion perfectly encapsulated by the repetitive discourse that Columbus, representing the Catholic monarchs, discovered America. So why didn't the enclaves pass to Morocco on independence? Salim Bouloutai Lakhloufi, is a historian and researcher specializing in the history of North Africa and the Rif Mountainous region in northern Morocco, which stretches along the Mediterranean coast from Tangier to the border with Algeria. He said Ceuta and Melilla continue to exist as separate territories because their origin predates modern Morocco. This is what Chatter was saying. I'm so happy, Nodelis. I'm so happy to hear that. So they are enclaves that have been occupied for centuries, he told Al Jazeera, but since gaining independence from France in 1956, which Spain recognized while retaining its enclaves, Morocco has consistently maintained that the territories of Ceuta and Melilla, which is called Ceuta and Melilla, and the Plazas de Soberania, are part of its territory and has been demanding their return. This has always been used by the Moroccan political class as a point of criticism against Spain, Lakhloufi said. Samir Benes, a Washington, D.C. based senior political advisor who is also the co-founder of Morocco World News and an expert on Morocco's foreign policy, said since independence, Morocco's territorial claims over Ceuta and Melilla have frequently been at the center of tricky relationships between Spain and Morocco. Perhaps the issue would not have the same detrimental effect on bilateral relations had Moroccan leaders shown greater determination in the early 1960s, during the height of the decolonization period, to bring the matter before the UN and seek recognition of these two cities as colonial territories that should be liberated from foreign presence, he said. He explained that there are, however, two important factors which led the Moroccan authorities to refrain from pursuing this course in their efforts to restore the country's territorial integrity. The first was the sheer scale of the territorial disputes between Spain and Morocco. Given the difficulty Morocco faced in simultaneously contesting Spanish control over several territories, the Moroccan government decided to proceed gradually in its efforts to recover parts of Moroccan territory that remained under Spanish rule. The second factor that led Moroccan leadership to postpone addressing the question of Ceuta and Melilla was the willingness shown by the Spanish authorities to resolve their territorial disputes with Morocco progressively. In the end, this strategy proved highly beneficial for safeguarding Spain's interests in the two cities, Benes added. Hummus Guzzler says, I've seen a lot of people saying it was orchestrated by the U.S. and its allies, including Morocco, to get Spain kicked out of the EU. Interesting. And Lennox Cat says, you think talking about Western Sahara is also important in this whole mess. Yes, and also Sudan, right? Because a lot of these refugees are Sudanese. So we'll do that as well. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Let me pull up some articles for us to further develop our little lesson plan of the day. Sorry. Okay. I think this is going to be a good one for us to read. Yep, Okay, I found two articles for us that'll be good. All right, so we're going to get into this. We're going to do a whole deep dive on it. Okay, you're going to DM me? Okay, I'll check later. All right. So Morocco's claim to these territories is relatively weak, Benes said, but the country can invoke a range of historical, geographical, and human arguments that cast doubt on Spain's position. Jamie Trinidad, a fellow and director of studies in law at Wolfson College, Cambridge University, also said that Morocco's claim to the territories is weak under international law. It is a political rather than legal claim, similar to Spain's claim to Gibraltar, which lies across the strait from Ceuta, he said. Oh, it's right across. That makes sense. Gibraltar is a British overseas territory. For those of you who don't know, it's this really small area of land at the tip of Spain that's technically its own country because it's British territory. So maybe not its own country, but separate. And then, so it makes sense that these are right across from it. That's pretty interesting, actually. I want to look that up. I almost went to Gibraltar recently. So I was looking at all of this. Like, maybe I should go here. Oh my god. Good thing Din Tai Fung is on there, though. That's the important stuff. Okay, so here's Gibraltar and here's Ceuta. See, this little area? Just for us. Right, when Morocco was given independence, Spain was still under Franco. Oh, you don't want much of that. So Lennox Cat says, my issue here is how it turned from Morocco's escaping Morocco to Ceuta's sovereignty. It was filled with bots on Twitter, Trump saying Ceuta was Moroccan, etc. feels fabricated. I mean, yeah, so obviously Spain has been bratty to the United States lately, and the United States got really, really mad at Spain for not letting the USA use their bases in the Iran war. So it would make sense that Donald Trump has vocalized in a number of different ways, being disappointed with Europe and kind of putting a wedge between the United States and Europe. So that would kind of check out. That would be interesting. As a consideration and not totally out of left field. So Jamie Trinidad says it's political rather than legal, and in the 1970s, Morocco asked the UN to include the territories on the list of non-self-governing territories overseen by the UN's Special Committee on Decolonization, but the Moroccan request was ignored by the UN. So around 84,000 people live in Ceuta and 86,000 in Melilla. In Spanish possession since 1580, Ceuta is home to a mixed population of Christian and Muslim, Spanish and Moroccan residents and day workers who live and work in relative harmony. But after more than 50,000 migrants entered Ceuta illegally last week, divisions and tensions in the enclave have risen. So just really think about this. Over half of the entire population of the town just got added to it in the terms of the migrant crisis there right now. Ceuta does feel like a strategical point for the Iran war as well because of its location. Very interesting. Hundreds of residents rallied on Sunday, 2 days after the surge of migrants. So really, it's like almost doubling their population, to oppose a planned far-right anti-migrant rally, forcing organizers to cancel the event. Okay. So I'm half Christian, half Muslim, as many in Ceuta are. We live peacefully together, but the numbers this time were scary. Ceuta resident Isabel told Al Jazeera over the weekend. It is a lot of people. Melilla, which has been in Spanish possession since 1497, is also home to Spanish and Moroccan residents, as well as small Jewish and Sinti communities, the latter a diaspora of Hindu merchants who arrived following the 1947 partition of India. Okay, so that's, England involved in that as well. The Plaza de Soberania is mainly populated by Spanish military personnel. Luffy noted that polling shows an overwhelming majority of people living in Ceuta and Melilla wish to remain a part of Spain. This has been reflected consistently in public opinion and in the absence of any significant political movement advocating a change in sovereignty, he said. Even the population with Moroccan origin want to stay as Spanish and European. This is because of the social welfare difference between Morocco and the cities is really high. Okay, that makes sense. At the same time, both cities maintain a strong historical, cultural, and economic tie with Morocco, making cooperation across the border an important aspect of daily life. According to the Spanish government, Ceuta and Melilla are part of the Schengen area, which guarantees freedom of movement within the EU, but are subject to a special Schengen regime. People traveling between the enclaves and mainland Spain undergo separate border checks. Schengen checks are carried out on exit by sea or air, the only two routes available. Therefore, no one can travel from Ceuta or Melilla to mainland Spain without being identified by the national police at the port or the airport. In addition, ferry operators and airlines are required to verify travel documents. So let's watch this 55-second video. So they're planning an anti-migrant demonstration after the influx of workers. The rally had been called by Nuevo Nacional, a far-right nationalist group featuring this guy. He says this is a disgrace, having to leave because radical Muslims came. Ceuta is Spain, we are going to defend it. Hundreds of residents gather at the sites. The locals are saying that group shouldn't come there anymore. Tensions have risen. Ceuta and Morocco and Spain. Spanish authorities have said most have returned voluntarily while the migration debate deepens. Okay, so some right-wing nationalist opportunists showed up and they were like, what a great chance for us to be racist. And the locals were like, this issue is more complicated than you. Get the fuck out of here. Like, we don't know who you are. Leave. And the locals say, which locals? So it looks like most people there, it seems like, are of mixed background and want to stay Spanish, but also don't hate immigrants. So they're like, this is a crisis because of the sheer volume, but we also don't want basically a bunch of right-wing nationalists coming in here and politicizing the issue. So I think the locals would refer to the overwhelming majority of people who come from a mixed background who want to stay in Spain, but also are rejecting anti-Muslim racist rhetoric that's like Europe for Europeans. So I think that's their unique position from what I can tell for the locals in Ceuta. They're like, we want to stay part of Spain, but we also don't want to be weirdly racist. We are also mixed. Like, what is going on? The locals pushed the Nazis out, exactly. So a group of like extreme right wing, basically Nazis came and they were like, yeah, and we hate immigrants, and they were like, no, you get out. So that's what's going on. Okay, so will Spain give up the enclaves? Analysts are divided. So in March 2022, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez wrote to the Moroccan king confirming Spanish support for Moroccan sovereignty over the Western Sahara, which Spain gave up control of in 1975. We're going to talk about that, chat. I pulled up some stuff for us. Sanchez says this was the most serious, realistic, and credible initiative for resolving the decades-long dispute over the vast African territory, and declared a new stage in Spain's strained relations with Morocco. Cabre said, therefore, that after last week's overwhelming migrant influx into Ceuta, Spain could ultimately cede sovereignty to Morocco. Their enclave's mere presence is an unsustainable historical anomaly at a time when the decolonization of European states is being promoted at all levels, like European countries returning items stolen during colonialism and recognizing the citizenship rights of their former colonies. But Luffy does not expect a fundamental change in Spain's policy on the enclaves. What may change is the way Spain manages its relationship with Morocco, particularly regarding border management, migration, and security cooperation. However, tactical adjustments should not be confused with a shift in Spain's long-standing position on sovereignty. It's usually Morocco that puts pressure on the borders, not Spain. All right, so okay. Why is Ceuta a migration flashpoint, and how were so many people able to cross from Morocco? 50,000 people. This is a good little map we can see. We have 3 supplementary articles to learn more about this. Ceuta here. Here we go. This is the Tarajal breakwater. Majority of migrants enter via the sea around this pier. So it's right there. That's very, very close. Yeah, map is very helpful, right? This is like nice. Look. This is what's going on here. Okay. So, Ceuta and Melilla, another Spanish territory 250 miles to the east along North Africa's Mediterranean coast, constitute the EU's only land borders with Africa. Spanish possession since 1580, home to a mixed population as we just talked about. Spain is a main point of arrival into Europe for people seeking better economic opportunities or an escape from violence in their home countries. What kind of violence, chat? Usually violence imposed by imperialism, right? Ceuta and Melilla are heavily fortified as they are seen as destinations for those trying to reach Spain from Morocco and other parts of Africa. Now, I can't speak as much about immigration into Europe, but as an American, I know when we experience a lot of immigration from, it's usually from the global south. It's usually from places where the United States had enacted horrific imperial violence against them and destroyed their economies and destroyed their lands. So I imagine it's probably similar in Europe, but I don't want to speak for you guys because it's not something I'm as familiar with. But it feels like a parallel. Many migrants who reach Ceuta or Melilla are immediately turned back, but others are held in migrant shelters while they apply for asylum in Spain. To reach Ceuta, people often swim from the Moroccan town of Finidic, which is around 3 miles away. Others attempt the crossing from the nearer town of Belyanek. In 2022, 23 people were killed as about 2,000 people, mostly from sub-Saharan Africa, attempted to cross into Melilla from Morocco. In 2014, at least 14 people died off Ceuta when 200 tried to enter by climbing the border fence or swimming around the breakwater that separates the city from the Moroccan territory. U.S. imperialism also impacts you in Europe. Okay, that makes sense as well. Yes, okay. Migrant arrivals are generally much lower than those reaching Spain through the Canary and Balearic Islands. Spain's overall immigrant population has grown considerably in recent decades, with about 10 million people in the country of 50 million having been born elsewhere. Many are Colombian, Venezuelan, and Moroccan, and work in key sectors of the Spanish economy, including agriculture, tourism, and the services sectors. I will say, yeah, I've said this before, but in southern Spain, also, people are very, very, very racist against Moroccans. It's very interesting. So since at least the mid-1990s, thousands of people cross the Mediterranean each year from North African countries and Turkey in search of asylum in Europe. According to figures from the International Organization for Migration, 35,000 migrant deaths and disappearances have been recorded in the Mediterranean since 2014, with nearly 1,500 dead or missing during the first 7 months of 2026 alone. Oh, last time this happened because Spain medically treated the leader of Polisario, Western Sahara. Yes, I think I remember that actually, that story. So why have so many people come? It's not immediately clear. Moroccan authorities have not issued a statement. It could be linked to a rivalry between Morocco and Algeria and a recent trip by the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez to Algiers. The last mass border crossing in May 2021 took place after Morocco loosened border controls during a diplomatic row with Spain over Spain's decision to allow the leader of the Western Sahara Independence Movement, yes, the Polisario Front, to be treated for COVID-19 in Spain. Right. Morocco and the Polisario Front both lay claim to Western Sahara, which was under Spanish rule until 1975, when colonial authorities handed over the territory to Morocco and Mauritania. That diplomatic crisis ended in 2022, when Madrid reversed its long-standing policy of neutrality and backed Morocco's plan for Western Sahara, a move which has caused a diplomatic rift between Madrid and Algiers, which supports the Polisario group. Okay? So, Sanchez visited Algiers on July 20th, the first such visit by a Spanish head of government in 4 years, marking a thaw in relations with Algeria. And speaking from Ceuta on Friday, Sanchez blamed the sudden inflow on human traffickers spreading rumors about a recent Spanish Supreme Court ruling that irregular migrants arriving by sea cannot be immediately returned. I also want to just talk about this generally speaking, that this is a thing. Human trafficking is not the way that we're often told it exists in the United States, where it's beautiful women are attacked in Walmart parking lots to be used in sex trafficking. Wow, right? Human trafficking is an industry, while sex trafficking is a component of it. The largest component of it is a lot of people like this who want to move to another country or are told to move to another country for better opportunities or work or things like this. We've obviously talked about this a little bit, but we'll talk about it more on our Tuesday deep dives on North Korea. But North Koreans are often trafficked by unscrupulous trafficking agencies in China. Like, people will see them in China and they'll traffic them to South Korea knowing they'll be trapped there. Here, where I live in Los Angeles, a lot of people from Latin American countries are trafficked into LA and forced to work in garment production, like sweatshops here, sewing clothes. So this is a major issue. So this makes sense that basically traffickers were like, oh, we can make money if we exploit this idea that if you get in now, there's this special new ruling, you'll be forced to stay. So it actually sounds plausible to me based on what I know about human traffickers and how they work. I don't know if anybody in the chat has thoughts on that. The True Crime Girlies have ruined so much in terms of trafficking info on the USA. Miss 72 says, yes, exactly. It's very, very hard to find real info, but this is the type of stuff that happens. So you will often see mass waves of immigrants from Latin American countries in the United States, for example, because it'll be like the same thing, like a Democrat passed this law that makes it so it's impossible for them to kick you out now, even if that's not real. And what's really, really interesting is that the Trump administration's rhetoric around immigration has actually reduced the number of border crossings, which makes it harder for them to deport and remove people to meet Biden's numbers. And part of that has to do with human traffickers during Democratic presidencies. They do use that as a sales technique to try to get more money from people to smuggle them into the United States or whatever. Yes, I own all the sweatshops, as Marish has said. Sweatshop owning landlord out here in California. People going to countries as indentured servants are often human trafficked, yes. So this makes sense to me. All right, so this is the thing that they're saying. Sanchez is saying that it's probably rumors like this being spread by human traffickers, like, come on over now the time is great, but we don't know yet. Matteo Villa, a migration researcher at the Italian Institute for International Political Studies, says politics was most likely involved. What happened in 2021 was a small-scale version of what happened yesterday, he said. 50,000 people do not come overnight, when usually it's hundreds per month. True. Sanchez going to Algeria is something Morocco didn't really like. Villa suggested Morocco may have loosened the border as a way of showing it has the upper hand, especially because authorities there know it would cause an overreaction in Europe. They love seeing all the fighting between European countries, he added. That's very interesting. Hegel's big dialecticals, yes. Doing human trafficking, yep. People do that as well. Yeah, they'll tell you could be a model in another country. It's just a couple months. They know people. They'll set you up. It's really, really bad. So Spain deployed its armed forces and additional police to restore order after the breach, which Sanchez described as a violation of Spain's territorial integrity. Images and footage of the border chaos sparked a crisis for the Spanish government and divisions within the EU, where right-wing politicians blame the incident on Spain's policy of legalizing hundreds of thousands of irregular migrants this year. Okay. Italy's far-right government went so far as to call for Spain to be suspended from the Schengen free movement zone. Wild. Even though Ceuta and Melilla do not fall under the arrangements in the usual way. And France responded by tightening its borders with the country. Wow. So Europe is like, don't let your people of color spill over into the rest of us, Spain. Deal with it. From what I can tell. Yes. So what does this have to do with what's going on in Africa? So I looked to see if this talked about Sahara, and it does. So we'll talk about, we'll read this article as well. So Ceuta leader accuses Morocco over atrocity of mass border crossing. Now this article came out today. So some of the ones we were reading were from last week. This is from today, an update. A growing chorus of voices has accused Morocco of helping to fuel the crisis in Ceuta, with the leader of the Spanish enclave describing last week's border crossing as an attack on Spain's territorial integrity that was being seen as, if not orchestrated, at least encouraged or permitted by Morocco. Spanish officials said on Monday that an estimated 69,500 people who had arrived late last week in Ceuta, a tiny Spanish territory in North Africa, had returned to Morocco in recent days. About 2,500 people who made the crossing were believed to still be in Ceuta. Okay, so pizza famine. Why did Ceuta migrant mayhem chill already frosted Israel, Spain? Ooh, great. I just started smelling popcorn. Does that mean I'm going to have a stroke? Does anybody know? I'm a little worried. Is that a thing? Smelling popcorn, is that a thing? Okay, well, let me know. Toast. Okay, no, I don't smell toast. It's definitely popcorn. No, doesn't smell burnt. It smells like a movie theater. Okay, alright. Okay, I'm alright. Heart attack? Well, if you see me fall over and have a medical emergency, do not call 911. I cannot afford an ambulance ride. Actually, I've decided I'm just not going to pay anybody, so feel free to call and give me a helicopter aircraft lifted. I'm just not going to pay it. So that's fine. So you actually do call, yeah. I just won't pay them. Fuck it. Alright. So, I'm good. All right. Just checking. So almost everybody's gone home by this point, but 2,500 people still remain. So this overwhelmed, they said, the city of 84,000 people and set off a political crisis across the EU as member states laid blame on Spain. And Ceuta, leaders pointed to the broader picture of what had transpired. It's an atrocity, said Juan Jesus Vivas, the long-serving conservative leader of the territory. There are 88 bodies in the morgue. There are more on the other side of the border. He said local people watched the events play out with a mix of sadness, worry, and anguish. People see this not as a migration crisis. It was fundamentally an attack, a violation of Spain's territorial integrity, Vivas told El País newspaper. People felt that this, if not orchestrated, was at least encouraged or permitted by Morocco. The people that remain, according to London's Cat, are minors, people asking for asylum, Palestinians, Yemeni, etc. Okay, got it. Yeah, call a limousine to take me to the hospital if anything ever happens. So he drew a parallel with May of 2021 when Rabat loosened border controls, allowing 10,000 people to cross in Ceuta over the course of 2 days, during a diplomatic standoff over Madrid's decision to allow Western Sahara independence leader Yes to be treated for COVID-19 in Spain. This time around, analysts have suggested that Spain's recent rapprochement with Rabat's arch-enemy Algeria could have triggered a response from Morocco. Speaking on Monday, Spain's defense minister, Margarita Robles, also seemingly signaled Rabat's involvement. Neither Spain nor Morocco can look the other way when it comes to this tragedy, she told reporters. I asked the Moroccan government to fully investigate what happened. The insinuation appeared to be backed by the preliminary assessment of Spanish intelligence services, who cited suspicions that the influx had not been planned by Moroccan authorities, but concluded that Morocco had failed to stem the tide of people rushing toward the border, and in some cases had even facilitated their passage. Intelligence sources told El País that the roots of the influx probably lay in a hoax, so this is where it comes from, that had swiftly spread across social media after a Spanish Supreme Court ruling that migrants arriving by sea could not be summarily deported. As the hoax gained steam online, Moroccan border surveillance dwindled to a minimum until it was completely lifted late last week, allowing tens of thousands of people to stream through. So they saw an opportunity, probably. This is very interesting. Yeah, call Taylor Swift. Have her pick me up in the PJ, the private jet. The hospital is like 3 blocks away from me, so I know because I had to go there during the ice things because ICE brutally attacked a woman so horribly that she was forced into a miscarriage, I believe, and then held at a hospital near my house. And then they were trying to steal her away in the middle of the night to somewhere nobody knew. So we all had to sit vigil at a Glendale hospital. So I know where the hospital is, if anybody's wondering. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. But yeah, close by hospital now, I know. It was horrible. It was awful. It was so fucked, man. They treated this woman so awfully. So yeah, members of the community, we were all like given shifts to just sit and watch ICE at this hospital in the waiting room and just make sure they didn't try to abduct her when nobody was looking. It was horrible. Okay, so Najia says, I saw a video of a man saying he saw a post on social media saying you could just go to Ceuta, so he took his family and went. Interesting. Milagro. Yeah. Milagro was her name. Yeah. So this makes sense. And then Morocco responded by being like, not our problem, have fun. Haha. Interesting. One local official told reporters those who remained in the city included 862 unaccompanied minors. Ashraf, age 28, said he defied his mother's warnings against crossing into Spain after spotting posts on social media that said the border had been opened. While he made it to Ceuta, what had followed was a days-long ordeal as he scrambled to find food and shelter while fending off the memories of what he had lived through. You might see me smile a little, but inside I'm shattered, the Moroccan national said as he recalled swimming past bodies to reach Ceuta because 88 people died in the water. There were so many people in the sea. Everyone was trying to grab onto you to save themselves. You were trying to escape and move forward so they wouldn't drag you or drown you. The Moroccan police were pushing us toward the water and telling us, swim, swim. Oh, this is wild. Others were desperately seeking loved ones who were missing. One mother said she'd been roaming the streets of Ceuta for days, frantically searching for any sign of her children, aged 13 and 16. So this was chaotic. This was just a massive, chaotic scramble that left people dead. She left Morocco alone, finding out later that her 2 children had followed her by plunging into the sea to make their way around the border. What? I need help, she said as she held up a photo of a smiling young boy flashing a thumbs up sign. Some migrants told me they'd seen them in Ceuta, but I can't find them. Across the EU, the crisis in Ceuta had seemingly ushered in a moment of reckoning after a handful of EU countries responded to the crisis by calling for Spain to be suspended from the Schengen Free Movement Zone. Yes, we talked about this. Synchronized reactionary international effort that very quickly amplified what was happening, spreading lies and fake news about the integrity of the area and about Spain's actions, said Jose Manuel Alvarez. Unfortunately, these falsehoods have even been amplified by some European governments. What transpired in Ceuta was very unusual, he said. Spain currently has the lowest number of irregular entries on the Mediterranean route, while Italy is actually the country with the highest number of irregular entries in Europe. He said he'd been in contact with Moroccan authorities throughout the crisis. They showed a willingness from the very beginning to mobilize police forces to help stem the flow of migrants. Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission president, said in a letter to Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez that the Tuesday meeting would be a chance to draw lessons from what happened there, and she commended Madrid for its swiftness handling the crisis. It's clear we must do something to further strengthen our borders at critical points. Very interesting. It does feel like, to me, maybe less of an orchestrated thing by Morocco and maybe more that, like, imagine you're working border control and just 50,000 people show up and you're like, I don't know. So that's my first instinct, but I don't know how real that is, right? That's my guess. Or maybe they're in Morocco too. They've also seen the news and they're like, hey, here's your chance. Just go. I don't know, right? Maybe they were also confused. Isolate Spain from the EU, 2, stir this Nazi Spain pot and get a new government, and 3, get Ceuta for the Iran war. Very, very interesting. That is what Lenin's cat is saying. And that would make sense. I mean, look, Spain has already proven itself not to be a reliable ally to the United States because of our failure to assist in Iran. Their failure, rather, to assist us in Iran. So it's very, very obvious that the U.S. government is mad at Spain, So Virgo asks, is this meant to destabilize Spain because they put pressure on us? Possibly. So this is all speculation, though, obviously, at this point. So let's see if we can find more. So this article is Pizza Famine submitted this as supplementary material. Why did Ceuta migrant mayhem chill already frosty Israel-Spain relations? And let's get into this now. So this is from 2 days ago. Spain says the crisis in North African enclave Ceuta is back under control. Most of the 50,000 migrants who stormed across its border over recent days chose to voluntarily go back to Morocco. Tens of thousands of people crossed in on Thursday and continued arriving overnight into Friday. I mean, they risked their lives to do this. It's all very, very sad. Most came by sea, swimming or in small boats. This is what Lenin's cat is saying. I know, it's very funny. Some rushed border crossing points in such numbers that the guards were overwhelmed. So this is what I guessed. The guards were just like, fuck, there's 50,000 of you. It's me and Greg here right now. I'm out. You know, that's what I would do. Imagine you're working border crossing and you're like, no, they don't pay me enough for this. I am outie. That's what I had guessed. Others tried to climb the breakwater that holds the border fence, and at least 67 people died. I think, 2 days later, the most recent update was 88. Many questions remain about what caused such a huge number of people to abruptly seek to illegally enter Spanish territory. It was clearly not a coincidence that they all chose the same day to do so. Was it coordinated and planned in advance? If so, by whom? For what purpose? Here's what we know. So they give us the backstory on Ceuta that we already read in previous articles. We talk about a Spanish Supreme Court ruling published in July that barred authorities from immediately returning migrants who arrived by sea. The ruling does not apply to migrants who enter Spain by land, including by climbing over the border fence. But several experts have questioned this theory, saying few migrants would have been aware of the court ruling. Ignacio Sombrero, a Spanish journalist specialized in migration in North Africa, told the news agency that without a doubt the July 8th ruling has played a role, but that doesn't explain the level of mobilization. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez blamed the sudden influx on human trafficking mafias who exaggerated the significance of the court ruling to convince vast numbers of migrants to take part in a mass coordinated surge into Ceuta. This actually does make sense to me. Ghost in the South says, we already know Israel has a habit of targeting certain cell phones to send direct evacuation orders. Who is to say they didn't target migrants to cross Ceuta? That's actually interesting too. Some believe that Morocco may have played a role in organizing and facilitating the sudden mass breach of the border. I don't know. To me, that sounds less plausible. I don't know if any of you guys think it sounds more plausible, but to me, I don't know. It seems like they've been in cooperation with Spain about this. There hasn't really been escalating tensions about these territories. Morocco also stridently asserts its own sovereignty over Western Sahara. This is the part that's interesting and for us to further consider. Yes, Lenin's cat says it's interesting to understand the Spanish current government actually has a quite good relationship with the Moroccan king. Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't really see why. I don't think that this would benefit either of them, either Spain or Morocco, for this to happen. So definitely outside forces. Right now, to me, the most plausible is the human traffickers, but we're going to see if Israel has something to do with it as well. So Morocco stridently asserts its sovereignty over Western Sahara, a former Spanish colony that it annexed in 1975, where the indigenous inhabitants, represented by the Polisario Front, opposed rule from Rabat and want independence. In April of 2021, Madrid allowed Polisario Front leader Brahim Ghali to be treated in a Spanish hospital for COVID-19. This infuriated Morocco. Morocco's like, that's a criminal in charge of an outlawed separatist rebellion, but he is the leader of the indigenous people there who are like, we don't want to be owned by Morocco. Morocco recalled its ambassador from Madrid and appeared to loosen its border controls in May, allowing 10,000 migrants to enter as a threat to Spain. In 2022, Spain restored full diplomatic relations with Morocco after reversing its 4-decade policy of supporting self-determination for the indigenous people of Western Sahara. They were like, fine, Morocco, whatever, Western Sahara is yours. And instead they backed now Moroccan sovereignty. It's widely assumed that Rabat achieved this goal by leveraging the vulnerability of the Spanish enclaves. So people are like, why did Spain suddenly reverse course and be like, fine, this area of Western Sahara is Morocco then? People are like, well, probably because the leverage was the 2 territories in Northern Africa, maybe. But that's speculation. We don't know that. So last month, relations between Madrid and Rabat soured again because Sanchez made an official visit to Algeria, a country Morocco regards as a bitter enemy because of its unwavering support for the Polisario Front. Some are speculating that the latest events in Ceuta show Morocco once again sending a warning to Spain. Maybe. They did it in the past. Maybe. Let's look at this video footage. Spanish PM Ceuta migrant surge violates territorial integrity.
Ceuta es una ciudad española. Y lo sucedido
This
en
is a
el día de
Spanish
ayer
city.
merece todo nuestro reproche, toda
Yesterday
nuestra
deserves our
condena. Lo
reproach.
que subyace
Self-interested.
es la lectura interesada que
Interpretation
las mafias
of
que
the
trafican con
criminal
seres humanos
network trafficking
han
human
hecho
beings.
de una sentencia del Tribunal Supremo que lo que hace es ratificar una sentencia
So he's saying traffickers have just been unscrupulous and harmed people on purpose.
Se dice que no tiene encaje en las repatriaciones en frontera la repatriación de aquellas personas que entren en nuestro
He said they
espacio
just illegally
nacional.
swim across.
Efectivamente, tenemos que ver cómo gestionamos, no solamente desde el punto de vista, vamos a decirlo, más aparente, situando boyas para que se vea desde el punto de vista administrativo que
I mean,
existe una
50,000 people
manera de
is so
contención
many
y, por
people.
tanto, se puede
That's
producir
so much.
y desarrollar esas repatriaciones en frontera, pero también desde el punto de vista legislativo, si tenemos que modificar.
Right. Sanchez would never
algunos
say anything bad about
aspectos
Moroccan
de las leyes
leadership.
para
Right.
poder garantizar esas repatriaciones en frontera.
Okay, so let's see. So some observers believe that if Morocco did orchestrate the mayhem, it may have been encouraged by others, pointing to two leaders with a particular grudge against Sanchez, U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So here's the other argument. This is really where it's really coming in. Sanchez is one of Europe's most consistently pro-Palestinian voices. He's explicitly said Israel's war on Gaza is genocide, has been highly critical of the U.S.-Israel war in Iran, and refused to allow jointly operated U.S.-Spanish military facilities to be used to facilitate the war. So this is why we classified Spain as brats on our map. Trump has been scathing about Spain because of its refusal to spend a greater share of gross domestic product to match the NATO target. Morocco has been far friendlier than Spain to Israel. In 2024, Spain refused to allow U.S.-flagged cargo ship carrying weapons for Israel to dock at Algeciras, so the vessel redirected to Morocco instead. That same year, Moroccan authorities allowed an Israeli warship to dock in Tangier to refuel and resupply en route from the U.S. to Israel, after Spain had refused the vessel port access. So this is why, remember, when people are like, your campus, the world is already divided in camps. All we're doing is knowing who's who, right? So obviously Spain is not an anti-imperial decolonial power, right? But because they've stood up on this one thing, now look at the fallout. The United States and Israel have decided you're not in league with us. You are an enemy. And this is really what it comes down to when we think about a lot of decolonial efforts that have actually occurred in the global south, where people thought maybe they could escape the ire of the USA by not aligning themselves fully with the communist movements. They still got fucked with just the same. It doesn't matter if you're a neoliberal capitalist that's part of our NATO ally membership. It doesn't matter if you're a small country in the global south who says you're not a communist but wants to do minor things that inconvenience us. If you do anything that inconveniences the United States in any way, you are the enemy no matter what, and nothing is off limits. So that is really true, and that is how the U.S. thinks of everything. It's an all or nothing friendship with us that you have to have, right? So, sorry, I'm like looking at the questions really fast. See if there's any zero-sum game. Exactly. Rule number 1, never trust the USA. Yep, exactly. So this is also plausible that this would be something the United States and Israel did. It just feels like the United States or Israel could do something else that would hit harder than this, but who knows? Let's see. Many Israelis consider Madrid's support for Palestine hypocritical when Spain also occupies Arab territory. In 2019, Netanyahu's son Yair tweeted a map of Ceuta and Melilla saying, "Dear Arabs and Muslims, want to free occupied Arab Islamic lands, here's a good start." Okay, so this is why they would want to do it. Rhetorically, they're trying to make a point about Spain. Like, Spain's a hypocrite. Okay. So this is their equivalent of Madeline Pendleton is a landlord on Reddit. They're like, but Spain. But theirs is actually, I mean, it sounds like it's kind of real. It is occupied land, but what we know is the locals actually want to stay a part of Spain. So it is more complicated than that, right? This is actually not a good comparison because people in Palestine don't want to be part of Israel. People in Ceuta and Melilla want to be a part of Spain, it sounds like. So, in March this year, an article written by American Enterprise Institute fellow Michael Rubin for the staunchly pro-Israel Middle East Forum urged Moroccan should gather, send bulldozers to the border, and then enter Ceuta and Melilla unarmed to raise the flag. In April, pro-Israel Moroccan analyst Amin Ayoub wrote an article for Israeli website Ynet News arguing U.S.-Spain tensions over NATO-Iran create opening for Morocco to press claims on Ceuta and Melilla, with Israel positioned to back Rabat diplomatically within U.S.-led alliance that increasingly favors cooperative partners over European holdouts. It's more of a Donbass region situation. Billionaires do love manufacturing immigrant crises. That's actually, you're right. It's kind of their thing. So this does track with Trump, right? And his rhetoric, certainly. So on Friday, with Ceuta invaded by tens of thousands of migrants, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, this is a real name. I just need you all to... Israel cannot be a real place. Danny Danon? This is Israel's ambassador to the UN. His name is Danny Danon? Come on. Do not fuck with me right now. Dude, get this shit out of my fucking face. So he posted a provocative comment on X. Somebody actually asked me why my name sounded like a Marvel superhero today on Twitter, and I told them because my parents knew I was destined for great things. Your parents probably named you Matthew, and I thought that was a pretty good burn. Okay, so here's what he posted. Spain, which never misses an opportunity to lecture Israel, has declared a state of emergency in Ceuta following the crisis over its immigration policy, Danon wrote. Maybe before it continues lecturing us, it's time it explained to the world why it still maintains colonial enclaves in Africa. Okay, got it. All right, cool. Well, it's all starting to become clear, commented Spain's Transport Minister Oscar Puente, apparently suggesting he thought Israel was involved in what happened in Ceuta. Okay, I'm starting to kind of get it. Okay. I see this argument. This argument is becoming clear to me. Pro-Israel sentiment has been steadily on the rise in Morocco. Yes, particularly as the country's diplomatic relationship with both Israel and the United States is deepening. Yes. Days ago, it was announced that Morocco named a 655-mile highway over Western Sahara after Trump. Ugh. The camps are real, chat. The camps are real. They're really there. Experts have said the gesture was far from surprising, as Morocco is one of the signatories to the Trump-brokered Abraham Accords, which saw the country normalize relations with Israel in 2020. In return, the Trump administration has provided crucial support to Morocco with the UN, yes, through bilateral channels, bringing Rabat closer to securing greater control over Western Sahara. Yes. There is no evidence that Morocco orchestrated events in Ceuta, partly on behalf of Israel, just a lot of interesting coincidences. Yes. But whether or not there was any conspiracy, one consequence of the episode is clear. The already frosty relations between the left-wing Spanish government of Sanchez and the far-right Israeli government of Netanyahu are now even chillier. Also worth remembering, chat, is that Spain still has a king, and the king's in charge of the military, so you might hear different things about their government structure because of that. Trump Heights in the Golan Heights. No, I was not aware of this. God. No. Oh my god. Oh my god. Hold on, I'm showing you. Jump scare, are you ready? Ah, what? I did not know about this. Oh, God. Oh my god. This is so... Is everything horrible in the world? Wow. Okay. Alright. Okay. So, I have one more article for us to look at. No, that's the first time I've seen that. I had not seen that. I do not. I try not to keep up with developments in Israel. Because it's a lot. I feel like it's one of those things where you can, all right, I got the umbrella. I know what's going on there. The minutia of it is just increasing levels of horror every day, though. Yeah, it is a very tacky dystopia, much like the USA. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Danny Danon is one of the primary antagonists? God, I hate this guy. This is why I was named as a Marvel superhero, because I have to defeat him now, a Marvel supervillain. It's Madeline Pendleton versus Danny Danon. That's going to be the next Marvel showdown. And this is why we were named this way. It was written. It is written. How old is he? I gotta look. He's 55. So he was around first. I came into this world, I think, to defeat Danny Danon. I think that's why I came about. I think the universe created me because they knew someone had to stop him. So, you think the right-wing king of Spain also told Israel to stop the genocide? Wow, that would be wild. Yeah, because the king's he's pretty gnarly. He's pretty right-wing now. Does he talk weird too? Oh, great. Okay. All right. His origins, let's take a second to learn about him. His dad was born in Egypt and moved to Israel in 1950. Hell of a time to make the decision to move to Israel. I'm just going to say. I mean, you know. It's been 5 years since the war ended. Okay. Just very, very Nakba, strong Nakba occurrences at that moment. Very well. Okay. So his dad was wounded by shrapnel in Jordan Valley during the War of Attrition. This caused him to enter a coma. Jesus. He's permanently deaf for the remainder of his life. Dana remained a close bond with his father, who would often advocate for him when his father's disability prevented him from doing so. Dana attended Blake High School as a member of the Batari. Okay. In 1989, he was drafted into the Army, completed a bachelor's degree in international affairs from Florida International University? In Florida? Yeah, in Florida. Okay, that makes sense. He came to Florida to get his degree, and a master's degree back in Jerusalem. He was in the IDF, and then he was sent to Miami by the Jewish Agency for Palestine, largest Jewish nonprofit organization in the world, established in 1929 as the operative branch of the World Zionist Organization. Sent to Miami, of course. Danny Dannett in children's drawing. Florida. Yeah. I have to defeat him. Defeat him.
Here at the main entrance of the United Nations, where thousands of people are passing every day, the UN decided to put an exhibition about world peace. Look at the drawings of children from all around the world.
He sounds kind of French.
Nothing about Israel. Nothing about our hostages. Look what they have. They don't recognize Israel. They promote hate in those drawings. That is shameful. This is part of the hypocrisy.
The hate-filled drawings. The hate-filled drawings is wild.
We'll remove this exhibit immediately and we'll stop with the hypocrisy against Israel. Here at the main entrance of the United Nations,
something about
of people are
the scroll over. Sorry, I'm not used to YouTube Shorts. Something about the scroll over to the hate-filled drawings, and they're all like world peace. It's like, oh, nobody thought this through. Yeah, his accent does sound French. And as a person whose family is from France, so I reserve the right to speak for all of France, I'm claiming his voice is ours. I must defeat him. I must defeat this man. Why is he appropriating my French accent? That's a question. That's a question I have for him. He doesn't deserve that. You have to eat many baguette to get that accent. Wow. Rude, Danny Dannon. Coming for him. Okay. Let's get into the final kind of story I pulled out for us to really wrap our heads around this. I know you see people see peace and freedom and are like, they hate us. It's like, what are you standing in the way of peace and freedom? Is that what that is an admission of? That was wild work. Number one up. Okay, me too now, Marish. I'm taking him on too. For the longest time, you really thought I had ancestry for France. Somewhere, according to 23andMe back in the day. So, I'm qualified to speak for them. Like all of the Cubans in Miami are qualified to speak for Cuba. Think about that. My people. I'm French. All right. Why did Donald Trump recently send a letter recognizing Morocco's control of Western Sahara? I'm not sure why it would be recent, but that seems like something on par with us. That we just always would have supported that, right? Hello. Welcome. Temporary secretary. Okay, so this is from April of 2026, and this is going to explain why there were so many people from Sudan, if I pulled the right article up, I believe. So let's talk about this. I hope this is the right one that I pulled up. I don't remember anymore. So Amir Ali stood on a narrow strip of land between two countries. Ahead, Moroccan guards moved through the darkness with flashlights and dogs. Behind him, Algerian security forces waited. For 2 days, he stayed hidden in the hills between the Algerian town of Magnia and Morocco's Oujda, watching the patrols below. Ali had been traveling for more than a year. He had fled a war in Sudan that killed his family, been detained and beaten by the country's paramilitary rapid support forces, extorted by police, and trafficked to a farm in Libya, where captors demanded money and tortured those who could not pay. He had crossed deserts and borders, slept rough, and gone hungry. Now Morocco, the last stop in his journey, was close enough to see. At about 10 p.m., Ali set off with 2 other men, moving slowly through the hills, sometimes on his knees, sometimes crawling. The 17-year-old Sudanese refugee could see the border ahead, but before they reached it, a vehicle pulled up nearby. He and others pressed themselves into the darkness. Like many times before, they tried to disappear. So remember, we were looking at the video of the people in Ceuta, and remember the group of Sudanese refugees had organized themselves together and were counting how many of them there were. So I wanted to find us something to talk about to explain why there were so many Sudanese refugees in Morocco to cross over into Ceuta in the first place. Really hammer home how interconnected all these struggles are, right? They already knew we were there, he told Al Jazeera. As the guards closed in, his heart began pounding violently in his chest, a symptom of an untreated heart valve condition. My heart started beating so hard, he said, started hurting so much that I just fell down. He says an Algerian guard slapped and beat him before loading him onto a vehicle. They hit me. They took everything we had, phones, clothes, documents. After 2 days in prison, he was put on a bus and driven south, back towards the edge of the Sahara, away from what he thought would be a place of refuge. But he would try this journey again. I had nowhere else to go, he said. Morocco's surge in Sudanese refugees is the story. Sudanese refugees have begun appearing along Morocco's eastern frontier in growing numbers since war erupted in Sudan in April of 2023. Escaping the fighting in Sudan, they often cross into Libya through areas controlled by smugglers and traffickers, then push on through Algeria before attempting the final crossing into Morocco, often believing it will be the first place on the route where they can formally claim refugee status. For many, Morocco appears a safer alternative than crossing the Mediterranean. Lord. I am hydrating. I am drinking so much water. That's good. I needed this. I don't think I drank any water over the weekend at all. Thank you, chat. I do need to still add in other fun things you can do with your points. Laptop battery's not bad. We're at 33%. We're doing all right. I love you all. Okay. So, it's widely regarded, Morocco, by analysts as one of the safer countries in the region for refugees, and it is a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention. But a long-promised asylum law has yet to be implemented, according to the UNHCR. In practice, much of the process is carried out by the UN Refugee Agency itself, which registers asylum seekers and determines refugee status under its international mandate. Moroccan authorities can issue national refugee cards, 50K to redeem karaoke. My only karaoke trick is I can sing 90s alternative rock songs with girl singers in an impersonation of their voices pretty well. It's my only karaoke trick I have. So refugees are not provided with accommodation or access to secondary health care, and fewer than 0.5% of registered refugees and asylum seekers have been able to access formal employment. By the end of 2025, UNHCR had registered 22,000 refugees and asylum seekers in Morocco from 67 different countries, up from around 19,000 the previous year. Sudanese nationals accounted for the largest share of new arrivals, with over 5,000 registered as of December 2025. Oh, great. Comrade Muffin 12, you're a Moroccan Marxist-Leninist you've been following for a long time. If we want to ask you anything to get a clearer view of what happened, some of your uni classmates actually crossed into Ceuta. Oh my God. We would love to ask you questions. Can you hold on and let me get to a stopping point here? And then I'm going to ask you some questions. That would be really, really helpful. Thank you. Thank you. This is why it's so great having you all in chat too. When things happen places, a lot of you guys are like, oh yeah, I'm there. Here's this, here's that. You know, very, very useful. Okay. So, the result is a growing number of Sudanese refugees making a treacherous journey across the continent, which many end up trafficked, detained, beaten, pushed back, or stranded along the way as vital humanitarian services are stripped back. But even when they reach Morocco, many say they still do not feel safe. They are left trapped in legal and financial limbo, unable to move on to Europe, and never fully secure from being forced south towards the border they risked everything to cross. This is the most hurt community we've ever seen, said Yasmina Filali, the president and founder of Foundation Orient Occident, a Rabat-based organization that supports refugees and asylum seekers. It's painful and tragic. This community is really, really in bad shape. Okay, so we're at a stopping point for a second, and we have Comrade Muffin in the chat, who's graciously said they will answer questions for us. So I think my first question, do you think so, really? Or no? Do you really think Troll? Maybe? Oh, first time chat. Maybe you're right. Account created today, following today. You're right. Okay, never mind. Likely troll. You're right. Okay, never mind. Sorry. I'm so trusting. You can really see the autism in me jump out. You see how I form bad friendships with people, don't you? Do you see? You see how I do? It's hard for me. It's hard for me to meet friends. Okay. Okay, well, that's, I got you guys. You keep me safe. Otherwise, I just talk to trolls all day. That would be my whole day. And it'd be fine. But, yeah, you see where your friends put a ban on me? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's real, real bad. Also, the other day, I saw one of my friends, and we were talking about someone who had been a friend of mine and all this stuff I, did for her, and how she just, was a total asshole afterwards. And my friend was like, I really blocked that out because it was so wild. But I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, that was, one of the most insane things I've ever witnessed happen to a person. And then later we, separated ways. And my friend texted me later and was like, I keep thinking about it, and it's, so just out of control what happened with this person. I'm like, oh, yeah, I deal with that kind of a lot. It's just, I have no filter. I am pure of heart. It's true. I am very, very pure of heart. Pure of fart, everybody. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm like, okay, fine, cool, yay. Okay, so for Ali, the Sudanese refugee, the search for safety began more than a year earlier in El Fasher in western Sudan's Darfur region. Pure of fart. War broke out on April 15th, 2023, after a power struggle between the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, and the RSF. And we do have some, if you want more of us doing a deep analysis on what's going on in Sudan, we do have some old videos. You can probably search and it'll pop up on YouTube experts, probably. It is good to be pure of heart, but then your life gets ruined by people. One time I let this random girl borrow my car, and then she didn't give it back for I don't know, 8 months. And when I got it back, all the tires were flat. It was just so weird. I get into these issues all the time. These are I've heard from other autistic people. This is very interesting. Also, other people who are autistic are still not, and sometimes I'll meet people who are also autistic, and I'm like, you get it. We're fine. And then they end up doing weird things to me too. And I'm like, wait, what? You were supposed to be safe. You were also autistic. What? Bell. Okay, yes. Okay, good. Hi, Bell. All right. So, within months, the war arrived in El Fasher, just as Ali was in a hospital for an appointment. They had just started shooting missiles, he said. By the time he got home, he found it a burning ember. No one survived. His parents, 6 of his brothers, and his sister were killed. The surrounding area had also been hit. I was so heartbroken, he said. Everything he had once known had ended. Ali fled, but was stopped by RSF fighters, lined up and questioned. The RSF are notorious for human rights abuses and often specifically target non-Arab Sudanese. They ask you your tribe, where you're from. He said they separate you. He was taken aside and beaten and had a gun pointed at his head. Ali was released only after paying. He traveled on to South Sudan and Uganda, but found little for himself in both countries. With no work available, people told him to keep moving towards Libya, Morocco, or Europe. Ali moved on quickly, heading towards Sudan's remote desert border with Libya. He paid for passage into Libya at night in the back of a pickup truck with 16 others, driving through the desert. But they were intercepted by a group of armed men, kidnapped, and forced to call family members and ask for money. Those who could not pay were beaten. They hit you with anything they have, he said, but Ali, with no family left, had nobody to call. Still, he was tortured and became severely weak, and was eventually released once the gang saw they couldn't make money from him. Crossing the Mediterranean was too expensive. Morocco, he'd heard, offered another option. But to get there, he had to cross through Algeria, where he was imprisoned for attempting to cross into Morocco and was taken on a bus to be deported to Niger. On the second night, Ali jumped out of the window of the bus and ran into the dark, hid, and waited. Oh yeah, you guys, Carsey Blanton, I don't know if you're familiar. Carsey Blanton is a comrade, though. Carsey Blanton is a communist, an actual communist, and does a bunch of organizing stuff and is really cool. 2 weeks later, after traveling on foot, he found himself back on the Algeria-Morocco border for a second time. After 12 hours, we actually made it inside, and we were successful with no guards, no dogs. We had to walk for 7 hours. We were at the top of the mountains, and we had to go down. This time, when he crossed, he reached eastern Morocco. A local charity gave him shelter for 3 days. He went to a hospital to seek treatment for his heart condition, but was told he needed a specialist. Ali registered with the UN Refugee Agency, and he said for the first time he has documentation recognizing him as an asylum seeker, but he still does not feel safe. In the suburbs of Rabat, behind a high wall and metal gate, lies Foundation Orient Occident. The center began as a community space, but as migration increased, it now functions as something closer to a place of refuge for people fleeing war. And they can ask for legal advice, the internet, attend workshops, etc. People arrive with severe injuries, etc., etc. So they're trying to figure out a way to deal with the refugee crisis coming in. Refugees arriving in Morocco today face a system that is not designed to protect them over the medium or long term. Going on. And yeah, so basically what I just wanted everybody to know is have some context for why there were so many Sudanese refugees in Morocco. All right, so that's it for that. All right. Yeah, Kirsty Blanton's great. Okay, so that's kind of what we got for today's current events. Does everybody feel like they know what's going on with the situation going on here with Spain and Morocco? I feel like I know a lot now going on. I think it's very, very interesting. I think the dynamics with Israel was something I obviously had not considered, but does make sense, especially given I knew a little bit. I thought about it this much, right? Because of Spain refusing to let the United States use them as a base for war against Iran. We want to do a little summary. Yeah, we can do a summary. So basically just, what we've learned is that obviously the situation with Ceuta, with migrants showing up on the borders of Spain, we know that it's a territory of Spain in northern Africa. We know that that territory, while it does come from a colonial backstory and colonial origin, the people who live there are mixed and they prefer to be a part of Spain. And that neither Morocco nor Spain has really prioritized resolving their status. It seems like a low priority for both countries. And that the more dominant issues, right, regarding decolonization there had already kind of been resolved. So this was kind of on the back burner, something that needed to be figured out, but wasn't of immediate pressing emergency. It feels like the people from Morocco who charged the border probably came exacerbated by human traffickers and others trumping up a false claim that they would be able to enter Spain and then not be allowed to leave. This was false. The majority of people have since been deported. There's a few, like 3,000 people, 2,000 to 3,000 people who still remain. And there's a chance that Morocco was complicit in allowing these people to cross the border, or maybe even encouraged it in order to send a message to Spain that Spain needed to play more nicely with the United States and Israel in their war against Iran. And the reason for this would be that Morocco and the United States and Israel are all allied and very, very close. So this could have been a U.S., Israel, Morocco ploy hatched to remind Spain that they have a leverage point, a pressure point in Northern Africa. But it also could be just something that became a social media trend, and a bunch of Moroccans saw it online and were like, cool, we can get free citizenship to the EU now, let's go. Nobody's really sure. And that's what's going on. Okay, so this is my guess. I would not feel comfortable guessing how involved Israel and the United States and Morocco really were in this. I would say that it makes sense that the social media virality blew up, just because I just witnessed here in Southern California a social media viral moment blew up into like basically a riot in a Southern California beach on the 4th of July here. So I know that this has the potential for this to occur. Yeah, it'll be interesting seeing if we learn anything more about this development. My guess is that probably at the very least, Israel obviously has been opportunistic to seize on it to make a political point. The United States probably will as well, ongoing. Yeah, they might not have been involved, but later they took advantage of it. Lenin's Casa, so money, Israeli and U.S. bonds. Yeah, that's what I would guess. Yeah, definitely. So we don't know how much, right, it is intentional or just seized upon as an opportunistic moment. It's very interesting, though, and it really does highlight again the importance of understanding how these countries connect with each other geopolitically, so we can understand their motivations and try to understand the world as it materially is, and not just be confused. Like, what does Spain have to do with Morocco? Have to do with Israel? Right? It's helpful for us to be like, oh yeah, okay, these alliances are drawn here, and these people are mad here, and these people are being used as pawns and puppets. So that said, we've got 15 minutes left. We're almost done with map chat. So we're going to move into map. So everybody who hates map, thank you for spending the day with us. Thank you for your time. We will see you tomorrow, hopefully. And everybody else who likes map, we will stay and do map. So, bye Virgo, we love you. Virgo, are you going to be streaming? Should I send people to you? Yeah. I stream Monday through Friday in the morning before work. Called the reactionary map. No stream today? Okay. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And everybody also remember to follow Virgo, and also remember the Virgo, do you want to drop the link one more time to your reading? And I'll put it up on the screen so people can screenshot it and save it. Virgo streams Wednesday through Sunday. Thank you. I don't know how I missed that. Thank you. No tank tubers today. Wow. Okay, I think as we mentioned, comradely disagreements between me and Virgo. But I do want to know what Larry said, so I messaged Larry on Discord, so we'll do a little group chat too. Larry's off with his wife. Oh, cute. Good for Larry. Okay, good. All right. All right. Everybody gone now? Unless Virgo, if you want to send me the link one more time to your yes. Thank you. Hold, please. I'm going to pull this up one more time for anybody who didn't see it at the top of stream. Please screenshot. Please attend to learn more about Stalin's Marxism in the National Question. Great text. Great text for everybody. Remember to attend. This is going to be on Thursday. Following our stream here, we'll go straight into that. Okay? All right, everybody got it? Got it. Okay. Bye, Virgo. Okay, so let's do map, everybody. All our mappers are left. We like the map here. All right, so today, chat, we can do... I'm going to say... Wait, why are you gray? You're the wrong gray. This is the wrong gray. It's the wrong gray here. Okay. Right? Yeah. Oh, no, it wasn't the wrong gray. It was the right gray. It was. Right? No, it was supposed to be gray. Okay, never mind. All right, we did it. Okay. So, today, we can do Indonesia. It's going to be sad. We can do Papua New Guinea. Does anybody have any? Two more? Singapore we did. Obligated to be here? Nobody's obligated to be here. Nobody has to be here. Was there a true neutral? Was Malaysia really true neutral? Is that what it was? Hold on. I didn't save it. Indonesia recently joined BRICS. Okay, let me take a look. Oh, it was true neutral. You're right. Okay, I did mess up. Okay, thank you. All right, we're back on. It's your first time seeing the map. We're mapping the camps to understand geopolitical relations, right? So, like, for example, when we look at, like, why is Morocco... what does Western Sahara and Morocco have to do with Spain? Like, this would be useful, right? Well, Spain is kind of bratty right now. They're in allegiance to the evil empire, but they're being kind of bratty about it. Morocco is very compromised by the evil empire, and Western Sahara is defiant. So then we can look at this and kind of understand, like, oh, that's what's going on with this border crossing. Morocco is more allegiant to the United States and Israel in our camp, and Spain is being a little annoying right now to them. So, and that affects it, and Western Sahara. So, yeah, this is what's going on here. There's recordings of old maps. Yeah, there are. Oh, that's okay, Ellie. There's a lot of, yeah, we have them all exported and stuff too on the YouTube. The YouTube I don't like monitor really, but I do export everything there. So it's like a dump of everything. All right, chat. I kind of feel like we should do Indonesia, but it's going to be a lot. Let's do Indonesia. No, Larry and I haven't talked about map yet, because I was at the weekend and I don't do anything on stream. But we're going to do a little convo. I'm curious to know what Larry thinks. I mean, I I have my thoughts about MAP. I feel like MAP is good and it is normal and fine. And Virgo and I are like, we have a comradely disagreement about MAP, and that is okay. Comradely disagreements are fine and allowed. But yeah, I still like MAP. The complaints I have heard, or the feedback I have heard, has not changed my mind on MAP so far. But who knows? Maybe Larry will hit me with something that I had not thought about. Right? Okay. So, Indonesia. Yes, Indonesia history is going to be rough. It's going to be rough. And remember, the goal of MAP is not to decide if we think a country is lovely or horrible or anything. It's to say their current government, it's not about their people, it's their current government leadership. Which camp of world conflict are they most aligned with? So we understand how they will react geopolitically to situations. So, yeah. Maurer says, Indonesia should be quick and easy. It's not like there have been any major anti-communist counter-revolutions or anything. Let's get into that. So I do have to take a bathroom break, so maybe we'll do that first so it doesn't mess up the flow. Yeah, I'll do a bathroom break now. So if you guys want to take a few minutes to find any info about Indonesia you might think is relevant for the conversation, do that, and I'll be back in 5 or less. Okay, I'm back. Results are in. There's too many categories for MAP. I also feel like there's a lot of categories for MAP, but we're in too deep, chat. We're in too deep now. We're in too deep. Okay, so let's go. Let's go. All right. I'm going to pull up some info. If you guys have helpful info, hold on to it now for a second, and then I will ask. So everybody obviously knows some of the most horrific anti-communist extermination campaigns in all of history took place in Indonesia. It's very, very brutal. I think we are aware of that. How long have I been online talking about politics? Since 2019 is when I started really doing it consistently. Yeah, let's at least stop doing new ones. Okay. I'm pulling up our info. Chat, I'm getting us ready. Okay. So first thing we're going to look at is the NED report here. I look down, Ghost in his cells on timeout. Okay, alright. So over here we have spending going on in Indonesia, right? To advance economic freedom in Southeast Asia, this center will partner with business associations in the Philippines and Indonesia to remove trade barriers, strengthen the capacity of labor unions in Indonesia. Also, it's worth noting, we talk about strengthening the capacity of labor unions. That's usually actually labor control. That's to make sure there's no communist influence in labor unions. This is something that mirrors what the United States did in our labor unions back, during the 1920s and 30s, maybe? That's when it started happening, when we started trying to do the takeover of labor unions. During McCarthyism, basically. Yeah, they were like, you can't be the head of a labor union if you're a communist or anything like that. So we kind of tried to do the same thing in other parts of the globe. We tried to co-opt the labor movement and take it away from communists and socialists. So when we see people be like, yeah, the United States government is spending money to promote labor unions, it's like, well, no, actually. We're spending money to promote taking the control of labor unions away from communists. So that's what's going on here. And this is what we're spending money on going on in Indonesia. Now, over here in the Hyper-Imperialism Report, which is an amazing resource for us. Again, so happy if whoever shared this with us. I can't remember who shared it, though. Claim it if it was you, so we can praise you and lavish praise upon you. Companies such as DynCorp International, Fluor Corporation, AECOM, and KBR Inc. run operations worldwide, including in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Indonesia. There are 902 known U.S. military bases and 145 known U.K. military bases, and there's a lack of data on them, but we know that there are privately owned ones going on there in Indonesia. We also know that there is one official U.S. military base in Indonesia today. And here we have a write-up that says, imperialism has racialized patriarchal foundations which trace back to how the sexual division of labor and control of women's reproductive capacities and the exploitation of women's unpaid work were reshaped within Western colonization as preconditions for the international expansion of capital accumulation. From then to now, gender-based subordination and violence have been used extensively in warfare and conquest, from the sexual slavery of tens of thousands of comfort women during Japan's military occupation in China and Indonesia to the current sexual exploitation that unfolds inside the U.S. military bases in the Philippines. So, there are also, it says, new non-aligned here. And obviously they were a colony of the Netherlands. And they have voted, oh, we didn't get the vote yet. They have, yes, a history of U.S. military intervention and a U.S. base. They voted yes on the Gaza ceasefire and yes on the Russia withdrawal. So Mallard says there's an interesting trend in foreignassistance.gov where 2026 obligations are very low, but the actual disbursement is about the same as previous years. Indonesia is mostly getting funding to deal with the rampant spread of TB there. Interesting. Tens of millions just for TB epidemic control from USAID and the DOS. 35 million in aid total, despite obligations of only 13 million. That's interesting. I wonder if that has to do with how funding allocation shifted because of the whole Doge ridiculousness. Maybe they did longer contracts or longer disbursement plans or something. Okay, sorry. Interesting. Okay. Oof. Indonesia, home to the largest Islamic population in the world, has a compounded average growth rate of 4.2% GDP from 2012 to 2022. It could be the world's fifth largest economy by the year 2030. State-owned enterprise assets as a share of GDP increased from 43% to 54% from 2014 to 2018. In 2020, Indonesia banned the export of raw nickel, a key component of lithium batteries. Indonesia accounted for 39% of the global nickel production in 2022. And, that's our timer, but I'm snoozing it for us. Ha! I'll take a shorter lunch break. Oh, it could just mean the DOS is cooking the books, Mallard says. We only committed to 13 million. We saved 20 million while they're still paying 35. Yeah, that's true, too. Yes, how they were communists originally, and then now communists are skeptical of what occurred post-revolution, is what Comrade Muffin is saying. So, all right, on February 2nd, 2023, during the Mandiri Investment Forum in Jakarta, President Joko Widodo warned, we must remember the sanctions imposed by the U.S. on Russia. Visa and MasterCard could be a problem. If we use our own platforms and everybody's using them, from ministries and local administrations to municipal governments, we can be more secure. Yet in November 2023, the U.S., they have a little footnote here, an active participant in the torture and assassination of over 500,000 Indonesian communists. That's actually a low estimate from what I've seen. And Indonesia signed an agreement upgrading their relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership. So that happened in 2023. So now we have a comprehensive strategic partnership between the United States and Indonesia. And Indonesia withdrew its application to join BRICS in 2023. And has said public interest in becoming an OECD member. Now, somebody said that Indonesia just became a member of BRICS, though. Is that correct? I didn't hear about that. Oh, they did on January 7th, 2025. I don't remember that. Okay. So that changes some things. Yes. Yeah, the Jakarta method stuff is very, very, very alarming. If you guys haven't read about the Jakarta method, you should. It's horrible. All right. So we also have Indonesia calls on BRICS to strengthen future workforce skills and forecasting. They ended up joining BRICS in 2025. Oh, wait, what do we... Oh, you have an... Where's the link? Oh, we can't do links. But I'll look it up. Do you have the name of it? Oh. What we have here is... Comrade Muffin says they don't count non-organized communists as communist deaths, so the number's higher. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, send me the story about DPRK. Indonesia president is willing to go to North Korea to open dialogue on request of South Korea. Okay. Yeah, this headline. Very interesting. All right, what else do we have? Jet tech leak. Will Indonesia consider security ties with North Korea? Why no links? Yeah, we got annoyance bombed by a pack of tween left comms. Okay, Indonesia's president has been super pro-Palestine. All right. Okay, I have something. It's not in English. Let's see if the translate will work, though. Here we go. So this is The Palestinian Struggle for Independence, the Right Side of History from Jakarta. Member of Commissions, Indonesian House of Representatives Amelia Angrani fully supports President Prabowo's speech at the 80th UN General Assembly session, which emphasized Indonesia's consistency and courage in fighting for Palestinian independence. Okay. Indonesia does not recognize Israel. They said they will after there's Palestinian state. Great. Okay, cool. All right. So they're two-state solution, but a little more fervent about it than many people. Okay, on JSTOR, the dynamics of Indonesia and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Oh, okay. Interesting. Let's take a look at that. Found it. Nobody look. I have to log in. Read online for free. Okay, here we go. Now we're logged in. Okay, so we're not going to be able to read the whole 24-page paper, but let's take a look. Abstract. Diplomatic relations between Indonesia and the DPRK need to be maintained for various reasons. Background has been established for more than 50 years. Mutual support in various international forums and establishing a secure region. Okay. They have maintained close bilateral or diplomatic relations since the establishment of both nations, going back to the administrations of Sukarno and Kim Il-sung. Indonesia established diplomatic ties with the DPRK earlier than with the ROK. That makes sense. And ambassadorial level diplomatic relations between Indonesia, and the ROK were only established in 1973. But then the question is, I understand like what happened in the past, but like what's going on today? You know? Yeah, the DPRK is not a secluded state, nor does it isolate itself, contrary to claims or propaganda from various quarters. This is a good paper. Whoever, who recommended this to me? If They Bite, yeah. This is a good one. The DPRK has formal relationships with 159 countries. Yes. So cool. Okay. Love this. This is very cool. DPRK has consulate in Dandong, China. Should I go, chat? Do you think they'll let me go? Okay, they talk about Juche doctrine, history of two countries. This is really cool. I feel like we need to get more to current info. The UN sanctions on the DPRK. Yes, Indonesia's role in cooperation with the DPRK. Strengthening diplomatic relations is essential for bridging political and ideological differences. 2019 bilateral consultation. Okay. Technical cooperation. Education and cultural exchanges. Conclusion. In the interest of economic cooperation, Indonesia needs to be cautious in establishing cooperation with the DPRK due to the sanctions or embargoes imposed by the UN on the country. There's potential to strengthen economic cooperation with the DPRK, particularly in areas not prohibited by the UN, and to facilitate the entry of essential goods that are in demand by the DPRK people. Furthermore, Indonesia needs to strengthen people-to-people connections and cultural diplomacy, as Indonesia's focus on the DPRK includes maintaining and developing ongoing programs and projects and participating in DPRK events. These include the Kim Il-sung Festival, the Indonesian Cultural Center at the Indonesian Embassy in Pyongyang, sending educators or Indonesian students to the Ryoguk Secondary and Middle School, and providing regular agricultural training to the Yaksu Cooperative Farm. Interesting. Okay. All right. That's a very, very cool, interesting paper. Thank you for sharing that. All right. I guess the question then is, what is Indonesia up to with the USA currently? I know the USA is spending money there. They have a military base there. What is the nature of the current situation? Does anybody, now is the time, if anybody has any additional info they want to share about Indonesia's current geopolitical alignments, please share them now. We'll take a look at it all. I have this from South China Morning Post. Is Prabowo's Trump moment a sign that China is losing its favorite partner? Major international property and casualty insurance company reports pulling out of the market suddenly. Oh, that's interesting. Hold on, chat. I'm going to pull this up for us. I'm so late. Oh my god. I'm so late. So late. We were pulling out of most of Southeast Asia. I mean, one of the things I have to do today, in addition to worky work, is I have to edit an interview I did with Young Soo from No.Doll, talking about the war games that the United States does with the South Korea that are geared at China. So it feels like the United States is like really prepared to go to war with China, which is like scary and weird. Okay, let's see what's going on here. A wild card, yeah. They're neutral. Okay. The This is nothing. This is tabloid gossip. This is nothing. Trade deals, that doesn't really mean much. They drop some tariffs, secure fossil fuels and access to critical minerals. Indonesia agreed to widen access for U.S. investors in critical minerals. Indonesian minister said Trump was too stubborn to rejoin the Paris Agreement. Why would we deal with someone that stubborn? Jumer said on the sidelines of the 2026 Indonesian Net Zero Summit. Let the others deal with him, he remarked, alluding to having other countries do the talking with the Trump government. Ex-Deputy Foreign Minister Dino Pati Jalal has called on Jakarta to be a pioneer in climate diplomacy. If the U.S. gets back to fossil fuel and multiplies its usage, they will produce more emissions. They're the world's largest economy. Who will have to compensate? We have to save more to keep that carbon budget, Dino, who founded the foreign policy think tank FPCI, said. Okay, so, yeah, we were building up for war with China, undeniably. Yeah, it's pretty bad. All right. Oh, China has wildly developed their hypersonic missiles. Come learn more on Virgo's Wednesday. That's really interesting. Smash. Pausable summary. So here is my summary. Let's do one more reading really fast. Indonesia's cautious over Trump's Gaza peace deal claims. This is from 2 days ago. Trump announced on social media that an agreement for complete disarmament of Hamas has been reached, calling for the peace deal of the next 20... Okay. Calling the deal a precedent for the next phases of the 20-point plan for lasting peace in Gaza. Indonesia does not have a role in it. Indonesia has indefinitely suspended all internal deliberations on its participation in the Board of Peace since March, amid escalating tensions between the U.S. and Israel and Iran, as Jakarta reviews its involvement in light of the deteriorating regional security conditions. Okay, so that's it. So we don't have a lot of info. All right. This is what I'm thinking. I kind of do feel like they're neutral, is my guess. Somebody else said neutral early too. What do we think? You're thinking Brat. Maybe Brat. I think Brat. They do have a military base. I think you're right. I think it's Brat. Does anybody have any complaints about Bat? Rejecting Israel is pretty Brat. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Does anybody have any restrictions on or rejections of Brat? I think that is the one to do. Okay. They have been filled in. I know, but we made it it's like a gradient. It used to be green, but it was really hard to look at the map. It was real uggo. It was too many colors. Look at how divided up it is. Wow. You can really see why they're like the East is evil. The United States is like the East. Eastern propaganda. Look at all that East over there. The horrible East. How dare they exist over there like that? Oh, the bisexual map. Yeah, chaos. Basically, the pink countries are the resistance, the blue countries are the evil empire and our allies. Anything purple is some varying degree of alignment with one, but but not, you can't count on me. And then gray is they're doing their own thing. We don't understand what they're up to. They're not necessarily good, but they're just there. Yeah, nice hemisphere you have over there. Sure would be ashamed if anything happened to what Bauer says. Down with the blue empire. Right. And this is what we got going on here. All right, I'm going to save it. We're going to do it. I'm 20 minutes late. I got to start working. I am trying to offload our company onto one of the workers, for managerial control. So we'll see how far I get with that. Because then I would be able to make my own timeline even better and schedule more. But we'll see how that goes. Compromised means that they basically have had a lot of their control and sovereignty taken from them by the United States, and our allies, the G7 countries, right? They're used as a tool to advance empire, but they don't necessarily have direct control of empire. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Let me see if anybody is on tank 2, but I think you guys are right. There's nobody today, maybe. Let's see. Right, there's nobody today, maybe. It's me. I heard myself. That's it. So nobody's there. So we want to raid. We're going to raid Mama Mila Media. Who is that? Okay. Wait. Oh, the Mama Mila Media person, right? That's who we'll do? Tank Holiday. Yay. All right, we're going to do it. Sending you there. I hope you have fun. I miss you already. And tomorrow we'll get into part 2 of our Topics Tuesday deep dive on the DPRK. Whoop, whoop. All right. Bye, everybody. Love you.